All right, everyone. Today we're going to talk about drawing in perspective in Procreate. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to this icon right here that has a wrench. And then I'm going to go over to the canvas section and turn on drawing guides. So you'll see a grid appear back here, but we want it for perspective. So I'm going to press edit drawing guides. And then I am going to change it over from the 2D grid to perspective. And then I am going to click on here and it creates a vanishing point. So I could draw in 1 point perspective here, or I can drag this over to the side and click again to create a new vanishing point and draw in 2 point perspective. What's nice in here too is making sure that with the grid, the horizon line is lined up, because you don't want one line to go way up there. We want it to go straight across. So I'm just going to do it like that. And then I am going to turn on assisted drawing. This way my lines will automatically go back into perspective. So I'm going to turn that on. When you want to draw curved lines, then you can come back into this setting and turn off assisted drawing. So I'm going to press the check mark button right here. And then we're going to practice drawing out some basic forms. So the first form we're going to draw is a cube. So I'm just going to zoom in here. I'm drawing above the horizon line, but you can draw your cube wherever you would like. And I'm just going to start with one line. If you see that your settings are not the same, right now I have the size of my brush all the way down, the opacity all the way up, and then the brush I'm using is this Stanley brush right here. And then I just have my color set to the default black setting. So I just drew a line. This one just goes straight up and down. It's not going back to either vanishing point. And now I'm going to connect it back to both vanishing points. The really nice thing here is that you don't have to draw, you don't have to use your ruler and draw it back. It's going to automatically, since we turned on that assisted drawing, go back to the vanishing point. So I'm drawing them back one way to the vanishing point, and then I'm going to draw them back the other way to the vanishing point. We're only going to draw them back as far as we want this box to be, like how wide you want it to be. And so I want mine to be pretty square because I'm trying to create a cube. And so I'm going to then draw 2 lines. One of them is connecting the 2 lines on the left like that, and then one is going to connect the 2 lines on the right. Then we have these little tails. We'll take care of that later. Don't worry about it yet. But then since mine is above the horizon line, I see the bottom of my cube. So I'm going to connect some lines to draw the bottom. If your cube was below the horizon line, then yours is going to show the top. So I am going to take one edge of my point here, and I'm going to draw, oops, I was holding my pencil there too long, and I'm going to draw back to the opposite vanishing point. So I'm connecting this left side here back to the right vanishing point, and then I'm going to connect this right point to the left vanishing point. Then I can take my eraser. My eraser is also just set to Stanley right now. And I'm going to erase back. Sometimes I'll make my eraser a little bit bigger so I can just erase it in one stroke. And I'm going to zoom in and really clean this up. All right, and then I'm going to clean up the next line. And over here. All right, and so now we have a cube. The next one I want to draw out is a rectangular prism. So this is going to be very, very similar, but we're just going to start with a smaller line and then make it wider so that it's rectangular instead of so square. So I'm just going to zoom in over here. I'm going to go back to my brush, and do you remember all the steps that we just went through? So we start with a line, and of course I'm making it smaller like I was saying, and then I'm going to draw 2 lines back to the vanishing point to the left and the vanishing point on the right. Then I'm going to draw 2 lines going straight up, deciding how wide I want this rectangular prism to be. And then again, I drew mine above the horizon line, so I'm going to see the bottom of my cube. So I'm connecting the left point back to the right and the right point back to the left. Once you get to that next line, you can just stop right there, and then I am going to erase any of my other lines that I made. Zoom in. Make sure it is clean. Excellent. Now we've got a cube, a rectangular prism, and now we're going to make a pyramid. So with the pyramid, I start with the bottom. And so instead of starting with a line, I'm going to start with drawing in a square of where my pyramid is going to be. So since this is above the horizon line, again, I am seeing the bottom of it. Then what I like to do is I like to create another layer, change my color to another color like this blue, and then I am going to draw, and when you create a new layer, go back into editing the guides and then turn assisted drawing on again because it automatically turns it off. Okay, so I turn that on again, and then I'm going to connect. Let me make sure I'm drawing on a separate layer. Yep. I'm going to connect the squares together. This is going to let me find the visual center of this piece. And then I'm going to start at the center of this square right here. And then I'm going to draw a line upwards. So this is getting that center point there. And then I'm going to go back to my other drawing. I'm going to turn my color back to black. And then I'm going to connect the corners up to this point. It can be anywhere on here. If you want it to be a shorter pyramid, it can go here. If you want it to be taller, it can go here. You could have drawn your line even longer. But I'm going to connect right here. And then when you hold your pencil down in Procreate, it allows you to move that line. So yes, it's just going straight up right now, and then I move it over. You want to make sure these are touching together. And since this pyramid is above me, I want to be able to see the whole bottom of this cube, or the bottom of the pyramid. And so I'm going to go from this corner right here up to the top. And then you can turn your guides off, and then you have a pyramid. Now I'm going to show how to do this below the horizon line as well. Okay, so I'm going to start with drawing the front 2 lines of my pyramid, just like that. And then I'm going to turn my guide layer back on and turn my color back to that blue. And then I'm going to finish drawing in my cube. I'm going to draw in the lines that connect the corners together to find the visual center. I'm going to draw my line going straight up where that visual center is, and then I'm going to go back to my drawing layer and go back to the black pen color And then I am going to connect all of these points that I just made to my line. There we go. And then I'm going to use this corner as well. So then when I turn my guide layer off, I have a pyramid. We wouldn't see the bottom of it because it is resting on the ground there. And so it's just drawn a little bit differently. All right, so the next one I'm going to draw is a cylinder. This is going to be the last one that I draw out. So I'm going to start on my guide layer, and I am going to draw with this blue. All right, I'm going to draw a square just like we did with the pyramid. I'm not starting with a line. All of these lines are going back to a vanishing point. I'm going to find the visual center. Like that. But then I'm also going to split that in half again. So I start at the center point, and then I go back and forth, starting at the center point, going back and forth the other way as well. This one didn't go all the way. And then I